See it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dora Diaz, and this is Lee, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say spill the tea with OYD.
Oh, this is Spill the
Really
Tea with
still working on the
OYD, but you should do
introduction.
it. It's all good. I mean, I feel like I always mess up the introduction. I need to get it together by myself. But thank you, Lee. Lee is our secretary for OYD, and we are here with Kelvin Soto.
Thank you very much, Dora, Lee. Again, I think this is a privilege, and I'm very flattered and thankful for the opportunity to have this conversation with you and to share some of my ideas and my candidacy. Explain a little bit about the clerk of court to your audience, and of course, we're going to be spilling the tea. And I didn't bring tea; I did bring coffee, and I will go ahead and by explaining to you my drink, probably reveal a lot more about myself than I really want to. So I actually drink coffee most of the time, and exclusively in this coffee mug.
Oh, how cute!
This is a coffee mug from San Diego Zoo, and it's full. That's why I'm careful. And it has a panda on it.
Oh, I love it. Pandas are so cute.
This is a gift from my daughter, Quetzali, and my wife when they went on a vacation there several years ago. And this is the only cup that I use at home. Of course, I am very partial to panda. I have it. When I was in law school, my classmates nicknamed me Panda, and it stuck. And that was back from 2002. Something about me looking like a stack of marshmallows with baggy eyes that haven't slept in weeks. All disheveled. That's how I, overweight, disheveled. They probably thought they were making fun of me, but I said that was a very, very accurate description. And just like a panda, I try to be balanced in my life. My coffee is balanced. I can't show it to you because it'll spill, but it's café con leche, the way that I grew up with. My mom prepared coffee, and it would be with a little bit of milk if you could heat it. I cut down on the sugar, but I do use a little bit of sweetener. I use this thing called la lechera, which is like condensed sweet milk.
Yes.
And it works well. So.
Oh, I haven't tried that yet.
It's almost an indulgence, but yes, so I'm the panda. I like things balanced. I like my coffee balanced, and
you're sentimental.
I'm sentimental.
I like that.
It means so in a moment of tranquility and solitude, I'm holding my coffee. I have a lot of the things that I really care about, involved in that process. It's kind of weird. I don't really think about it consciously, but it's there. And thank you for this opportunity to share this with you.
Oh, thank you. That's what Spill the Tea is all about. And I just have some just sweet tea with lemon here. But I really enjoy that story about your coffee. And it makes, I don't know, panda and coffee makes this like warm, fuzzy way to start the show.
And you know what? I tell you, I try to avoid it past 5 p.m. because it means that I'm probably going to be awake.
I love how worldly your coffee is too, because you've got the panda, so that's like kind of Asia, and then you've got Western America with the San Diego, and then the cafe con leche, so you got that Caribbean feel. So I really appreciated that answer.
Thank you, and Mr. Lee, I tell you, I am already revealing a lot more than I personally do. So you're already picking up on it. I tend to skew. I do wax philosophical at times, and if you catch me doing that during this interview, don't just put the brakes on it and keep it, okay?
Oh, thank you. So I was wondering for our viewers, what is your story?
Well, my story is that I graduated high school, and this will answer a lot of things in the future, so we don't repeat ourselves. Graduated high school and I joined the Navy, and I served for 6 years as a medical, what is called a hospital corpsman. That's what Navy medics, the titles that they are. And after that, I had invested in the GI Bill because part of it is money you put in. And I had a lot of encouragement from the physicians that I worked with and the senior officers to give college a shot. You know, college was never in my future when I graduated from high school. But it did become part of my future once I had experience, worldly experience, you know, through the Navy and the places that I visited and the people I work with. So that's really the genesis of it all. I pursued my college education after 6 years in the US Navy. I went through a bachelor's degree. I went on to a master's degree. I worked for a little bit before deciding to go into law school in 2002. And I graduated in 2005 and came over to Florida, became a member of bar in 2006. Been a practicing attorney ever since. 2012, I was elected to the Osceola County School Board. It's been wonderful, very, very interesting experience. I think that it was a period of growth for me personally, professionally, and that's even after I was an attorney. And now I come upon the last few months of my second term, and I feel that I still have a lot to offer in terms of public service. I feel that and we'll talk about that later, but I feel that the office of clerk of the court is that I'm uniquely, there's a unique fit between my skills, my experience, my desires to serve, and the function of the clerk of courts in Osceola County. And so I want to serve, and I'm certain that I could do a good job if the county would have me. And that's where I am now. That's the point of my life that I am now.
So we didn't actually mention that you were running for clerk of the court, so I apologize for that. But so you are running for clerk of the court. What exactly does that office do, and who can vote for you?
Very good question. So it is a partisan office. What that means is that unlike school board or judge, this is an office where you have a Democratic, Republican, Independent. You could have several different parties field candidates. So that's the first thing. So in a primary, it would generally be a Democratic candidates will be selected, one from those and one from the other parties. In the general election, obviously, everybody votes. The clerk of courts have a lot of important functions, but let me just go through the ones that are just really obvious, but a lot of people don't really think about it until they need it. But the clerk of courts is the keeper of records, land records, deeds, recorded mortgages. All right, that's one of those things that they do. They have to keep the maps, you know, of where property lines lay. One of those things that they do. They also process vital records and vital statistics, which are also kept by the State Department of Health. But at the local level, they're maintained. So we're talking about issuing certificates of birth certificates, divorce certificates, marriage certificates, things like that. Okay, so that's another function. They also serve as a place where local residents can obtain passports through a liaison relationship with the U.S. Department of State that issues the passports. So those are kind of like the obvious things, and of course they maintain the courthouse and provide with all the services that judges and lawyers need in the courtrooms. But there's a lot of other things that go on as well with clerks, and I think that it all depends on the individual clerk and their philosophy as to how much they want to connect with the community and advance, positive and very important social causes. So it has a reach. It has an incredible reach, and it has very, very important functions.
Thank you so much. I was just telling you before we went live is that this is the first interview of a clerk of courts, And it was, I really I had to research and I was wanting to know what that meant. So I really appreciate you explaining what that position does. So what type of philosophy do you want to take in your, if you were elected in your office of clerk of court, or how do you make it run efficiently? What do you think you can do to make it run efficiently?
That's a good question. And I wouldn't be undertaking such a difficult task as running a countywide election if I didn't have a goal that I thought was worthwhile for the people that I want to serve. And I think that I think that what's happening now is, you could call it maybe the silver lining in a dark cloud, but there is an opportunity to reassess and reinvent how government agencies provide services to his people, to his community. And here we are going to have to, just like school districts are doing, and I'm doing my part in advancing that. There's going to be a different, how we provide services through the clerk's office is going to be different than it's ever been done before. I understand quite well that the constraints and the new way of doing business in the world post-COVID, it's something that we need to start thinking about now. And so with that in mind, I have a focus on, first of all, automating through leveraging technology, every service that we can, everything that is possible. And I'll give you an example of something very simple that touches a lot of people. A lot of times when somebody gets a speeding ticket, that gets resolved by going to the clerk of courts, and you go in and you take a number and you sit down, and then you call to a window, and there you got to make the payment for the ticket. Why? Why does someone has to do that? That's something that could be automated. We have technology now that didn't exist even 3 or 4 years ago, but we have now electronic signatures, electronic verifications of ID. There's technology out there that we can do business with people, know who they are, and do those transactions securely and confidentially. I'm talking about like financial transactions and things like that. So why don't we start doing that? Why don't we go ahead and look at our web portal and maybe develop apps that people who use the courthouse a lot and frequently can access, could subscribe to? What about points of entry? We have to maintain social distancing for a long time. This is not going to go away in a few months. I mean it. And that's a different conversation to have. But we're going to have to maintain social distancing. So we need to think about how we're going to get people in safely through our security and to where they need to go, how to minimize the time that they're here, get them back to their lives. And so that's the focus that I have. It's how do we do business as a clerk, as a courthouse, after we make all the adjustments necessary post-COVID.
Mr. Soto, I love how you're thinking about what's happening right now and how it's going to impact our future. We are the Osceola Young Democrats, so we're, ages 14 to 40. And that's the demographic we're really, that's our demographic, that's our audience. So with that in mind, to be honest, I don't know anything about the clerk of courts. I knew very little before the research I did for this interview. So why should young people support your campaign? Why should they care about the clerk of court?
Well, I'll say this. It won't take long for the average person in a lifetime to need the services of the clerk of court. And I will give you an example. That's where people get their marriage licenses. And I think the average age of people getting married are about 22 or 23. So that's really one of the contexts. But as soon as people drive, they'll need to do business with the clerks, whether it's for a speeding ticket or parking ticket that needs to be resolved there. That's really where you get a lot of business done. But I think that we could do more. I think that the clerk can actually be a little bit more proactive with young people than just wait for anyone to need their services. I think that a clerk of court can help with voter registration. Yeah, I mean it. I think that a clerk of court can collaborate and work together with the tax collector maybe to issue driver's licenses or maybe some other kind of services that they may need. These things shouldn't be looked as islands onto their own. I think that when you want to serve the community and you have different government agencies, you should have that synergy and you should be able to leverage resources so that you can have more presence throughout the county. And I'm hopeful that can happen. I know Bruce Vickers very well. He's a consummate professional. And Mary Jane Arrington, our supervisor of election. I would hope that whoever the leaders of those agencies are, and Clerk, that we could get together and say, hey, look, you know what? How can we help provide services, even if it's not from your office, so that we could help people better their lives? I mean, and why couldn't we do something like that? But the most important thing, really, it's if you have business to be done, to be able to get it done as quickly as possible, hopefully remotely through apps and through technology. But if you have to come to the courthouse, that everything be streamlined, quickly get you in and out so they could go on with your lives. Because like I said, this thing is gonna last a while. And everything that we learn from it is really going to be what we implement probably for the rest of time.
So I just want to, thank you. I just want to make sure, like, kind of duties wise, like the this office, that's about the jury duties, and that is
Yes.
Jury duties, court dates, of issuing court dates, right? Am I correct on that?
Yes, ma'am.
So okay, I just wanted to make sure. But I also wanted to know, what do you think is the future? Where does the future lie in the judicial system, and how does this office, collaborate with that? Where do you think we're heading?
So you just, I thought there was a pretty glaring omission in everything that I just said, and you just pointed it out, and that is very important. And Lee, absolutely. One of the most important forms of civic engagement, how could I have forgotten this? It's, of course, is to serve on the jury. And a person is eligible to serve on the jury when they turn 18 years of age. And we hear so much about, well, if you got stuck on the jury because you were too stupid to get out of it. And every time that I hear it, I'm an attorney. And when I hear that, I mean, it makes me cringe. It makes me cringe. Such an important function, such an honor to, I don't know how many countries there are in this world that allows you, an individual, to be heard and considered by a jury of their peers. Something that our founding fathers, our Constitution, provided and makes us unique, I believe, around the world. And even if they do have juries, it's not quite the way that we have it here, where it's so inclusive. And I definitely will do everything, and Lee and Dora, this is a very important point, that I feel very personal about. And that is that I would like to make jury duty what it's supposed to be, and promote it in the sense that, in a civic duty sense, make sure that I find out what barriers there are as to why people resist. How could I make it better? Do we need a tech system so that people don't have to wait, and if people prefer to wait in the jury room, what else can I do for them there? It's something that will have a lot of my focus right from the get-go, because that's what makes our judicial system work. It's our jury. And like I said, I hear a lot about that. Oh, you were just too dumb to get out of it. My goodness, you want to be in it. You want to participate in this process. You're doing something great for yourself and for your fellow countrymen and women. So thank you for bringing that out. And I'll tell you, I do look forward to improving on that.
Mr. Soto, I think that's so interesting that you bring up this kind of understanding and like kind of educating the public on the needs of, civic engagement, especially with your background in education and, your current role as a school board member. And that kind of factors into transparency, because I know a lot of people that think that because we register a lot of voters, and a lot of times when we go up to people to register them to vote, they think, oh, I don't want to register to vote because if I'm registered to vote, that'll put me on a jury panel, or that'll get me called for jury duty. So obviously we all know that that is wrong, right? That's a myth. Unless I'm wrong, I'm willing to be corrected.
Lee, it's not that it's a myth. It's that when someone says that the reason that they do not want to register to vote is because they may get called for jury service, that tells you a lot about the perception of what it means to serve on a jury. And I think it's the responsibility of the judicial. I think it's a responsibility of our schools. I think it's a responsibility of our local government agencies and the clerk of court that ends, and that we change that perception. And by the way, the jurors are called from the driver's license registry, but they're not from the voting registration.
So how do we educate the public, or how do you plan on involving the public in those types of conversations? And what kind of transparency should the clerk of the court have with the public about these decisions?
And obviously that is a very important project. It is obviously a project that needs to be driven by our youth, by the people that we most want to reach. When I joined the school district back in 2012, I had to read a lot about what's going on with public education. And one of the things that jumped out at me was that only 39% of high school graduates from Osceola County enrolled in a public college or university after high school. You heard that right. Only 39%. And I was like, why is that happening? So in order to figure it out, and this is to answer your question, I went and I sought the advice, and I collaborated with Kathleen Plinsky from Valencia College. I talked to our guidance, our administration in the school district guidance counselor. I talked to young people. We got together to figure out why is it that this is happening. And of course, from all of those efforts, we were able to identify that some FAFSA was an issue. And within FAFSA, there was a lot of different things that affected why a student would have filled out a FAFSA. But I'm just giving you an example. So this issue about changing the perception about jury service, that is something that we need to come together. It's not going to be me alone. Maybe I could do it if I put enough hours, times, months, but why? Why couldn't I collaborate with people like you? Young people involved with politics, whether it be Democrats, Republicans. Why couldn't I collaborate with other people to go ahead and say, hey, let's go ahead and think about what are some of the causes, what are some of the factors as to why somebody would say, I don't want to get registered to vote because I don't want to be called for jury service. And we could read about how maybe other communities have tackled this problem. So I don't expect to have the answer for everything just out of my own. I mean, leadership also means being able to find people who are smarter than you and leveraging that for a cause or to achieve an objective. So that is absolutely a primary mission if I am clerk, and it will be one that will be tackled together.
Thank you. And I do agree. I think a lot of organization, it is about collaborating with leaders and making sure that the voice is heard. So I'm glad that you're open to speaking out with organizations to make sure that you change the perception of the jury duty. Now, another thing, like the clerks of courts, they process all civil and criminal cases, right? And so how do you
all court cases, all.
So how do you prioritize these court cases to be processed? How do you plan on doing that? That's my question.
All right. So you have the judicial branch, which is the Ninth Judicial Circuit, and they have a chief judge who's an administrator. And and this is where I am the only attorney amongst the candidates. So I have some special insights as to how courts function that they don't, or they may, if depending on what, I shouldn't make assumptions as to what they don't know or do know. But here's what I know. And that is that we need to work with the courts. We need to get guidance with them so that we could coordinate our efforts so that we get people, we got to be able to move cases, because justice delayed is justice denied. And it doesn't matter whether it's a car accident or a family divorce case or a criminal case. We need to do everything that we can to make sure that the parties get their issues resolved. And we need to do that within the procedures laid out in the law. So I'll give you an example. Criminal cases, there's a law that says, listen, if you don't prosecute and take this case to trial in 6 months, you have to dismiss it. So the clerk needs to understand that, and the clerk needs to make sure that all of the steps that are required to get this case to conclusion, they're met, that the judges and the attorneys have access to the courtroom to make those things happen. And not just the courtrooms, we're talking about the technology in there too. And I'm talking about being able to coordinate with them so that we could send out notices and tell people, hey, here's your date and time and where you have to be at so and so. And right now we're doing things through the mail system, but post-COVID, we need to start looking at automating everything that we can and using texting and using even this technology that we're using right now. This morning, I did a hearing through Zoom with a judge that I've only been in front of in person. Our first Zoom meeting, I said, hey, how you doing, Judge? And we just smiled. So, and then there's going to be jury trials, which I don't think can be done through Zoom. And so how we're going to do that, make sure that we have social distancing for our jurors. There's going to be a lot of things going on with that, but it's a collaboration between the NIMS Judicial Circuit, the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's office, the public defenders, our private attorneys, and the clerk. And
how do you work with like the state attorney?
Oh, absolutely. You work with the state attorney and with the public defender I would probably like regular meetings, maybe monthly meetings between their leadership and mine or myself. I am kind of hands-on when it comes to these things at a certain level. And just making sure that, hey, look, you know what? We want to do this way. Do you have a problem with it? Or do you have an idea? Or do you have a suggestion? And they could do the same with us. They could say, it'd be really nice, clerk, if we could have some space in some parts of some of these conference rooms for maybe putting in some kind of video relay. There's a lot of things we could do together. And it's just communicating with leadership for the most part, and then having the will to manage a budget to implement these things, which we cannot ignore.
And since we mentioned the state attorney, which, current events and the Black Lives Matter movement have really brought a spotlight on the Ninth Circuit state attorney race. There is a lot of conversation going on about how the system, it has been actively working against Black communities. So what can the clerk of court do to promote anti-racist policies, or is there anything that the clerk of court can do to change the systemic oppression for these communities?
If an elected official ever told me that there was nothing they can do, I would question why that person is even serving as an elected official. When we're talking about the issue of the lack of justice, that African American, Black folks, minorities, that has become part of the American culture for for the groups that we're talking about, Blacks, Hispanics, and foreigners. And to say that there's nothing that you can do, I think it's extremely short-sighted. I think as a school board member, that's something from the first day that I got elected that I've always been aware of. That I've always been aware of the school to prison pipeline, that I've always been aware about, the inherent biases with teachers. And I'll get to Clerk in a moment. With teachers and their students, I read the studies. I've seen it as a hearing officer, how these biases play into how students are treated. And the best thing, and we always must keep that in mind when we're talking about policy, when we're talking about rules. We every opportunity that we have to talk about these issues with the superintendent or with other administrators, you take those opportunities, and you say, hey, you know what? We know these things are going on. If we do this differently, would it help? And that's how you do it. And it's not one thing you do and you're done. This is something that I've been doing from the first week that I got elected, and I'm still doing today and right now in the school district. Okay? I'm still addressing these things. Now, I'm one of a board member of 5. I am not a CEO where in the clerks, I will be that. I will be the CEO. I will be able to implement employee rules and employment guidelines and contracts. I will be able to choose the vendors that I can see have socially conscious approaches to doing business. I definitely could go ahead and address how people are treated when they interact in our customer service or through our security. And so it's going to be a lot different than what I've been doing in the school district, where I have to be part of a consensus, which is okay. I've been able to manage that for the past 8 years, and even though I don't boast about it in the media, a lot of the things that I do are very positive. And once they get done, I just move on to the next one. I'll just give you an example. On the first few months that I got elected, it was I led the charge and I advocated, and I was able to persuade 2 board members to pass on a vote 3-2 to extend benefits, health benefits to partners. Because remember that same-sex marriage was not legal back then. And there came a question as to whether we should, as part of our benefits package, say to this teacher, or this employee, we could cover your partner. It was me. I was able to convince a couple of people, but I wasn't going to go ahead the next day and announce it to the press, because I wanted to maintain that trust with the school district and with the people, because they needed to see my sincerity, and the reasons that I were doing it was because I wanted to improve people's lives. Once I'm clerk, one of the first things that I want to do is to make sure that anybody who works there or comes to do business feels 100% comfortable, and that they will be treated and confident that they're going to be treated with the dignity that every human being deserves. And to do that, it's going to be work that I have to do every day, every week. It's not like, oh, I took care of it, I'm done. Just got to continue on. And no, I'm not going to be tolerant of anything that violates the dignity of other human beings. That I could say. Very important topic.
Thank you. Do you have any ideas on how, like something more specific in how to employ qualified individuals that reflect the different and diverse demographics of this community, Latino, LGBTA, women, more women in the workplace? Do you have any specific plans for that?
Okay, first of all, that deserves action. I don't believe that a human resources and a good organization can just sit down and cross their fingers and hope that, oh, this is going to be reflective. You need to put work into it, just like a school district, all right? If you have 60% of your students are Hispanics, okay, you can't tell me that you can't find Hispanic teachers. And it's not because I'm not looking for the best. I am going to get the best. But if I could get the best, and they can and they can help a student see themselves as a professional, then I should try to do that. All right. So we don't want to make sure that we have a quota system where we end up doing the opposite, where we are saying for this. So I don't like diversity for diversity's sake. I like diversity because it's organic and it makes sense and it's reflective. But it doesn't happen by chance nor by luck. So the way the specific Ms. Diaz that you're asking about, is going to be for leadership to get together and say, hey, look, we have this goal. And I could say, in the district, we have this goal. And this is how our district professionals managed it. How are we going to get together and manage that? Because I'm not going to be leading the human resource department, but the person that's going to be leading it will follow my vision. And that's where it starts. It starts with leadership, and then it starts with everybody getting together to achieve those goals. And so, but I guess the short answer and really the important is, it doesn't happen by luck. You got to want to do it. And then you want to plan and implement.
I know you talked a lot about partnerships with other local government positions. Do you think there's a way where we could create like an education program with the school district of Osceola County to maybe train some of the people that are required for these positions, maybe people in the communities we're talking about?
You see, this is important because these agencies, they serve the community. They belong to the community. It's your clerk's office. It's your courthouse. And one of the things that I have been stressing a lot, you know, when the hurricanes happened, we had a lot of people that had to come from the Caribbean, mostly from Puerto Rico, because of the infrastructure and the damage. And a lot of kids, a lot of families came and they enrolled in our school system. And I would talk to them and I would meet them. And always thinking about how can I make you feel safe? How could I address everything, do my part and the district do their part to help you, just be happy after everything, or happier after everything that's happened to you. This one thing that has come across, that is, we have a quality public education system. You know, Osceola School District is 67 out of 67 in funding in the state. But you couldn't tell by the product that we put out. We are pretty good. No, we're good. I'm very proud of the school district. Then we have Valencia, that as far as community colleges go, listen, if you go through Valencia and you could transfer to UF easily. And from UF, you could go to medical school, starting in Valencia. I know because my son done it. He just graduated from UCF Medical School last month, all right? And he went Gateway, Valencia, UF, UCF. He did it. So I know that we have a great public education system. However, do I feel that the agencies and I don't feel that connection, Lee. I totally agree with you. That could be that I don't know everything that's going on. Okay, but if there's a way for us to work with the school districts and with the local community colleges, then we should explore that. And that should be, and I think that's important because it'll go straight towards that other goal that we mentioned, which is to change the perception of jury service. Because we do want young people, we want people to start feeling that these agencies belong to them. And that they're not just a place where if you don't have a connection, you have no entry whatsoever. It shouldn't be that way. I agree. And I think that that's another project that we should be able to.
Especially I'm sorry. I said especially these, these programs, education programs provide internships, and if these offices allow those interns to learn just for a couple of months of how these offices work. So one, the office will get that young perspective, and two, our young people will know exactly how this office works to make change.
Ms. Diaz, Lee, I'll tell you this. Look, just think about this. You have a high school that is interested in computer, maybe network security. We could have a program where they could see it in action, because an office like the clerk has a technology, they have an IT, they have records keeping. There's just so many things going on here that there's so many disciplines that a young person can get exposure to and an interest. And that doesn't mean that they're gonna, graduate high school and apply for a job. That's not always the answer. What it also means is that I graduated from high school and now I'm gonna seek a degree in computer engineering because I like what these folks do. It's pretty exciting.
Mr. Soto, thank you so much for your time. I only have one more question left for you, and then I know Dora's got a less serious question. but we've talked about, not a less serious question, more of a question about who you are. Oh my gosh, that was
Everything's
a
been
terrible
serious.
transition.
It's been very serious so far.
We're still working on our transitions. I'm not really good with the interviewing. But I was taking notes, and I know you talked about like the future of the clerk of the court with COVID-19 in mind. You've talked about the importance of efficiency and using technology and working with the public on that. You've talked about educating the public. With all of that said, what is the most pressing issue for you in regards to this race? And how does the clerk of court, how can you make the clerk of court kind of fit those needs?
Well, I think I'll try to interpret your questions as well as I can, but if I don't do, please correct me. So one of the biggest obstacles, I think it is the understanding of the public, of the voting public. I don't think that a lot of people really give it a lot of thought as to, we really need a clerk that can make something happen or make this happen. It tends to be overshadowed by other political races. And even though it's very, very, it's very important to your everyday life. And I already talked a little bit about the kind of impact that someone in that office, a leadership in that office can have in a community. And so that's a big challenge. It's a big challenge. And it definitely goes into what I want to do as clerk. And that is exactly what we were talking about, which is effects some kind of social change in terms of civic engagement, which is very generalized. But as far as customer service, I want, whether it is attorneys to get what they want, save money, save time, be able to get documents, be able to have appointments set up, and scheduled with efficiency, notices sent out. So in other words, we want the official duties of the clerk to go seamlessly. And we want to make sure that people can get in and out and get on with their business and their lives, and have accuracy in everything that we do for them. That's extremely important. So it's one of those things really where there's so much opportunity for a community to grow with the right leadership, but it's extremely difficult to convey that to a voting public. It's going to be a challenge.
I appreciate that answer. That was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Especially just educating, because like, for example, right now in this, the past 45 minutes, we have learned so much and about this office and how important it is. And this is something that I had to research, and now I see where that impact in the community is. And I know that for our voting bloc, that doesn't seem like, oh, it's a big deal, but it really is when it comes down to those day-to-day, the court cases that people go to, the jury, all these parts that is involved with this office. So I really enjoyed this interview. Thank you.
And, thanks to, to your questions, we also developed how this office can reach out into the community besides the services that it does. And I certainly see a component of civic education in terms of our jury services and of collaboration with other offices, and and bridging the clerk's office with the local public school system. I think that's those are things that definitely deserve to be looked at, and I'd be excited to undertake those projects. I really would. I tell you, it's a great opportunity for Osceola County, and I hope that I have a chance.
So speaking of Osceola County, what are your favorite places to spend time in your district? Where can people go to and they might see Kelvin Soto?
Well, with COVID and stuff, not much out there right now. But I'll say, in downtown Kissimmee, there is a business called Matador that for the past 2 years, my friends and we founded what's called a Domino Club. And it's social, and it's there Wednesday and Thursday evenings. I go on Thursdays. I haven't gone in a while, but we're going to start it up again. And it's pretty cool. Downtown Kissimmee is quaint, but it's very welcoming. It's not difficult in terms of like to park or or to get around. Some pretty nice establishments. There's always Old Town, as you know, but I'm a little too old for that. I'm a little too old for Old Town. Isn't that ironic? I'm old for Old Town, but that's it. What else? Oh yeah, and if you are interested in nature, there's plenty of places for very nice nature walks. We have Wild Florida. So there's, it's you've been to, San Diego is San Diego County is the only place that I remember ever living where I could have snow, desert, water in the same day. In the same day, I can go and experience snow, desert, beach. It's like everything you could imagine in one county. Now, Osceola County is not quite that. We're missing some, but the diversity here, the eco-diversity here is underappreciated, and they still have a lot of development to go. Hopefully it all works out.
Yes, that is very true about California.
It's amazing. Then you could go to a foreign country for dinner to boot. It's amazing.
That's funny.
It's amazing.
Well, I really do appreciate you interviewing with us for Spill the Tea with OYD. We really learned a lot, and I hope our viewers did too as well. Lee, I know Lee enjoyed it too. I was wondering if you had any last words for your viewers, talking about the campaign and how to reach out.
You know what? I won't use my time for that. I'd rather just say you guys have a really nice platform going. I like how you both present. And for being your first, you probably have done interviews. It's the first time that you do it with Spill the Tea, but it's a good platform. I think you guys handle it very well. I found your questions to be very probing and engaging and thoughtful. The time just went by really quick. And I think that you're doing a good service for your viewers, because if they are tuning in, that's what they want. They don't want just a bunch of softballs and trite answers. And I don't believe you're going to let anybody get away with it. I certainly didn't feel like I could. So keep up the good work. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm always going to be available to you for anything off the record or anything else that you think that I can help you with. I'll be available. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Soto.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys, have a good evening.
You too.